You wake up at 3 a.m. The house is completely silent. No traffic, no hum from the fridge, nothing, and instead of feeling calm, your heart is pounding. Why does silence do that to you? You would think quiet means safe. No threat, no noise, no danger, but your body doesn't read it that way. Your ears strain, your muscles tense. Somewhere deep in your brain, an old alarm is going off, and it isn't responding to a sound. It's responding to the absence of one. That reaction wasn't built for your bedroom. It was built for the savannah roughly 2 million years ago when silence almost never meant peace. It meant something had stopped. Picture the world your ancestors lived in. Insects clicking, birds calling, wind moving through grass, a constant low background hum of life. That hum was information. It told your ancestors, without them even thinking about it, that the environment was stable. Nothing large was moving. Nothing was hunting. Then sometimes the hum would cut out. All at once, the birds would stop. The insects would go quiet, and that sudden silence meant only one thing: a predator had entered the area and every living thing nearby had already noticed before your ancestors had. Your ancestors who froze and listened hard in that moment survived more often than the ones who shrugged it off. Over hundreds of thousands of generations, that response got wired in, not as a thought, as a reflex. Modern hunter-gatherer societies, studied by anthropologists as living windows into ancestral behavior, still show this pattern today. Foragers in dense bush environments routinely describe sudden silence, not sudden noise, as the moment that stops a group in its tracks. A snapping branch can be explained. A gust of wind can be explained. But total, unexplained quiet, in a place that was making noise a second ago, has no easy explanation, and unexplained things get treated as dangerous until proven otherwise. That single rule, when in doubt, assume danger, cost almost nothing to a hunter-gatherer who paused for 10 seconds and heard nothing further. It cost everything to the one who kept walking straight into what the silence was warning about. This is what biologists call the landscape of fear, a term coined by researchers studying how prey animals behave around predator activity. Daniel Blumstein, a behavioral ecologist at UCLA, has spent years studying how animals use silence itself as a warning signal, showing that a sudden drop in ambient sound can trigger alarm responses in species that never even saw the predator. Your brain still runs on that same operating system. It doesn't need to see the threat. It just needs the silence. So when your world goes quiet unexpectedly, your nervous system doesn't interpret it as calm. It interprets it as something changed and I don't know what. Here's where it gets stranger. Your body isn't just listening for danger in silence. It's actively searching for it. This is why in a silent room you start noticing your own heartbeat, your own breathing, the ringing in your ears that's always been there, just masked by background noise. Your brain, deprived of external information, starts scanning inward, treating the absence of data as a problem to be solved. Stress physiologist Robert Sapolsky, who has spent decades researching how the body's stress response evolved for short bursts of danger rather than constant modern activation, has described this system as brilliantly suited to a zebra outrunning a lion and poorly suited to a human lying awake at 3 a.m. with nothing chasing them at all. The alarm doesn't know the difference. It only knows the pattern: quiet, unexpected, unexplained. Underneath that alarm is a chemical cascade you never chose and can't consciously stop. The moment your brain flags unexpected silence as a possible threat, your adrenal glands release cortisol and adrenaline, the same hormones that once told a hunter-gatherer to freeze, listen, and prepare to run. Your heart rate climbs. Your pupils widen, pulling in more visual information even though there's nothing new to see. Digestion slows because processing lunch is not a priority when something might be stalking you. None of this requires a real predator. It only requires your brain's prediction system deciding the pattern looks unsafe enough to prepare for one anyway. Here's the part that feels almost unfair. This entire response fires before the thinking part of your brain even gets a vote. The signal travels first through a small almond-shaped structure called the amygdala, which specializes in fast threat detection, long before it reaches the prefrontal cortex, the part capable of reasoning that you are, in fact, just in your own kitchen. By the time your rational mind catches up and says, "There's nothing here," your body has already spent several seconds preparing for a fight that was never going to happen. Some researchers estimate that fast-path threat signals can reach the amygdala in a fraction of the time it takes for the same information to reach conscious awareness. You don't get a vote in that first stretch. You only get to manage what happens after. But why would evolution build a system this jumpy? Wouldn't it be exhausting to treat every silence like a potential threat? It would be. And that's exactly the point. Evolutionary psychiatrist Randolph Ness has argued that fear systems like this one are built like smoke detectors, not like precise threat scanners. A smoke detector that only goes off during an actual fire is a badly designed smoke detector because by the time it triggers, the danger has already arrived. A good smoke detector goes off too often. It's annoying, it's oversensitive, and it saves your life the one time it matters. Your ancestors who had oversensitive silence detectors paid a small cost in false alarms. The ones with undersensitive detectors sometimes didn't get a second chance. You inherited the oversensitive version. Every single one of us did. And you inherited it whole, no adjustments made, no software update for elevators, apartments, or offices with the air conditioning turned off. The circuit doesn't know it's obsolete. As far as it's concerned, it's still doing the most important job it has ever had. Now think about what silence actually means in your modern life. An empty house at night. A pause in a meeting right after you've said something. The dead air after someone doesn't text back. None of these are predators. None of them are actual danger. But your ancient alarm system doesn't check your calendar. It just registers, unexpected, quiet, unexplained, and fires the same response your ancestors used to survive a leopard in tall grass. This is why silence in an argument feels worse than shouting. Why a long pause on a phone call makes your stomach drop before anyone has said a single bad word. Why some people put on background noise just to fall asleep, not because the noise is pleasant, but because it tells their nervous system the hum of life is still running and nothing has gone wrong. Even the discomfort of small talk might trace back here. Conversational silence, held a beat too long, triggers a mild version of the same ancient circuit. Your brain doesn't like unfilled space, because for most of human history, unfilled space was the space where predators moved. Think about open-plan offices for a moment. People tend to find sudden quiet in a busy office more distracting than steady background chatter. A room full of low conversation fades into the background, the same way insects and birds once did. But the moment it drops out, every head tends to lift just slightly. Nobody trained you to do that. You didn't decide to notice. The noticing happened before the thought did. Or consider what happens the moment you take off a pair of noise-canceling headphones in a quiet room. There's a strange half-second where your senses seem to sharpen, almost too much, as though your brain is rapidly rescanning the environment it could no longer hear a moment ago. That's not your imagination. That's the same vigilance circuit, briefly switching back on after being told, for a while, that scanning wasn't necessary. Sleep patterns hint at something related. Many people fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer with soft, continuous background sound, like a fan or a white noise machine, than in total silence. It seems backwards. Shouldn't silence be more restful? But total silence isn't restful to a system built to treat it as a sign that something out there has already noticed a threat you haven't. A steady hum, oddly enough, is what tells your nervous system it's safe enough to let its guard down. So what do you do with an alarm system this old, still running on hardware built for a world that no longer exists? You can't switch it off. Nobody can. But you can recognize it for what it is, not a signal that something is wrong right now, but an inherited habit from a world where silence and danger were often the same event. The pounding heart at 3 a.m. isn't broken. It's ancient. It's doing exactly the job it was built to do, just in the wrong century. Notice how often you reach for your phone the instant a room goes quiet. That reach isn't boredom. It's often your nervous system asking for the hum back, any hum, a notification, a video, a voice, anything that says the environment is still generating information and nothing has slipped past unnoticed. Silence, to an ancient brain, isn't empty. It's a gap in the data feed, and gaps in the data feed are exactly where danger used to hide. Even grief carries a version of this. People who have lost someone often describe the house itself as unbearably quiet, not just emotionally, but physically. A missing voice leaves a specific kind of silence, one your nervous system registers as absence rather than peace, because for nearly all of human history, someone going quiet who used to make noise was itself a piece of urgent information. Your body still treats an unexplained silence, of any kind, as something worth listening hard for. Your ancestors' silence meant a predator had already been spotted by everything around them. Your silence usually just means the refrigerator finally stopped humming. The alarm hasn't caught up to the difference. But now, when you notice it, you can. So the next time you wake up at 3 a.m., heart pounding in a completely silent house, you'll know what's actually happening. It's not the quiet that's dangerous. It's 2 million years of your ancestors still listening.